Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the damn sofa. That's the damn sofa, and today our sassy sidekick is the damn bear because Roscoe's actually in the bed sleeping. He didn't want to be a TV dog, and my damn name's Paul. Now, what we've been doing is we've been reading Chad Daybell's horrifying book, 2 Feet in the Grave, 1 Foot in the Grave, or whatever the hell it's called. It's cringy, it's horrible, we're almost done with it. It has given us some insights. We already knew he had no respect for living or deceased people, right? This book has given us more insight into the depths of his depravity, though. So, that being said, we've been going through it, we've been reading it. Every video I threaten that I'm going to get through the whole thing. I can already tell you I'm not going to finish it this time, right? 100% I'm not going to. We're going to be lucky to get through this chapter. It's going to be, I'm just telling you right now, right? I've just resigned to that. I'm going to stop pretending like I'm going to be able to finish the whole damn book. Because it's just not going to happen. We are close to it. We are at 71%. We're going to be reading Chapter 8, Surviving the Survivors. Now, before we get into it, and I'm going to put this down in the comment section too, because a lot of people have been asking me this in the comment section. I can do this in the pinned comment, and so I just want to know. So, a couple of things. One thing I'm thinking is, once we're done with this book, I've started looking at some of his other books just to see if there's anything that would be of interest into the mindset and whatnot. And a lot of them, I don't know. I'm just like, you know, I don't know. A lot of people enjoy me reading them. And then, so my question is, then I've also looked into like other books outside of Chad's, right? Because there's that whole thing where books go into public domain. And so there's like some old mystery books and stuff like that. So my question is, do you want me to read another Chad book after this? And if so, which one? Like, specifically tell me and I'll look at it and see if it's of interest. And then I'm thinking of just moving it to the podcast channel for that next one since it's such a niche thing or whatever, which is fine. We'll still keep doing it. Or is it like, no, Paul, we just want to hear you like read whatever. And, there's like some old Jane Austen books, that kind of a thing on this one site that does the books that enter into public domain. So anyways, let me know if either of those things are of interest. If they are, we can go one step further and maybe list some titles or whatever. So just let me know. I'm going to do a pinned comment and then just, drop comments down below too or whatever. So that is it. Okay, let's get our mojo straight here. Last damn chapter, I almost took my ass out. Okay. So chapter 8 is Surviving the Survivors, God help us. And let me say this before you go. One thing about his other stuff, I don't want to really get into reading anything that might have anything to do, even though this is really obviously kind of close. Like if he had some story about children and bad things happening to them, like I don't want to read that, right? It's too close to home, you know what I'm saying? That type thing, right? Like I'm not interested in that. This is close enough, right? So anyways, and I just don't know. Like some of the books I was looking at, it's like about LDS stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, that's all. Now let's go. So it's chapter 8, Surviving the Survivors. So here we go. Most people don't even think about a cemetery during a typical day, but there are others who become almost obsessed by it. First damn line, okay, y'all? First damn line. Or is it a compulsion? Either way, there are many cemetery visitors who are there every single day, and some stop by several times a day. He 100% would stop by several times a day. Although it is a weird habit, I can sympathize with these people. The cemetery is where someone very dear to them is buried, and they are struggling through life without the one who has passed away. This is just, and right after I said that whole thing just now. Anyways, this is Watch the Road for Wayne. My first experience with this obsession came in the form of Wayne, a very old man who drove an equally ancient pickup truck. Soon after his wife died, Wayne would come to the cemetery once or twice a day. But as he got older, his visits increased to once every hour while the sun was up. Out of curiosity, I once followed Wayne home during my lunch break. I nervously watched him barely avoid several collisions before pulling his truck into his driveway. I then went home and ate my lunch, but rather than going directly back to the cemetery, I parked near Wayne's house. Sure enough, at 12:55, he climbed into his truck and headed to the cemetery, arriving right at 1 p.m. for his hourly visit. Wayne's vision sadly became steadily worse, and enough citizens complained about his driving that his license was taken away. Losing his license killed him, literally. He died within 3 months, and now he rests next to his beloved wife. You know Chad complained about him numerous times. And honestly, this is another example of why I put that story in there. I mean, again, like, oh, we all banded together and killed Wayne is what I got from this. And maybe I'm being just, like, extra sensitive. Place hold. But these are the stories that, like, why? Like, why put that in there? I mean, that's like trying to be a sweet, cute story. Absolutely just loves pulling the carpet out from someone. Anyways, just checking up on things is the next one. Pardon me. For other obsessed people, I think they visit each day to make sure nothing has happened to their headstone. Of course, the odds are very slim that something will have happened since their visit the previous hour, but you'd be surprised. Well, I mean, my damn God. In his damn cemetery with the stories he's told us, anything is possible at any given damn moment, okay? I would probably be, if I didn't have anything to do, I'd check every 30 minutes, because you could show up in the damn whole place would be rearranged, right? Anyways, one guy I'll call John had a 3-hour routine going. Okay, hold on. One guy I'll call John had a 3-hour routine going to visit his wife's grave. He would come to the cemetery at 7 a.m., 10 a.m., and 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and 7 p.m., whether it was a blizzard or blistering hot. His truck was bigger than mine, so if it snowed overnight, I would get there just after 7 a.m. because Gary would have blazed a trail for me. Anyway, one year we hired a new fellow to operate one of the riding lawnmowers. Unfortunately, he had a hard time getting the hang of it, so I had him practice mowing a fairly easy section near John's wife's grave. He seemed to be handling it all right, so I left him alone to practice. 5 minutes later, the new employee came running down the road. "We've got a problem," he shouted, and I could see he had knocked John's headstone completely over, and the mower was now high-centered on it. See, this is what I'm talking about, right? Anything would go down there. We struggled to get the mower off the stone, but it was too heavy. I ran and got in the backhoe, and we lifted the mower off with a chain. The headstone was still a major problem, though. Miraculously, do we count this one as a take a sip? Miraculously? I mean, is that one of the adverbs? If you're new here, we do like to drink every time we use an adverb, which is quite often. We'll give him a pass on this one. Miraculously, it wasn't chipped or cracked, but it had a dark tire mark across it. I checked my watch. We only had 10 minutes until John's next visit. Dun dun dun. I knew John would explode if he saw what happened to his headstone, but we lifted the stone back in place and got the tire mark scrubbed off in less than 10 minutes. I hopped in the backhoe just as John's truck pulled through the gate. I drove to the other end of the cemetery and watched as John got out, placed a flower on the grave, then got back in his truck to continue his 3-hour cycle. He had no idea what had happened to his headstone. I mean, come on, y'all. Do we really believe this? You're going to know if that went down. I don't care if the damn tire mark's on there or not. You're going to know if the damn headstone got ripped up like that. I mean, point blank, period. And I mean, oh my God. And if this is true, I'm sure there might be some people who do this, like you visit the gravesite and all that. How heartbreaking is that, to be that heartbroken? You know what I'm saying? To come visit your loved one, to miss them that much, right? That's so sad. Anyways, so the next thing is called "Hey, You Skipped Arbor Day." Pardon me. One aspect of this, hold on. It goes dark on me sometimes, and my eyes are like, help, we're in our 40s. We can't adjust like that. Okay, one aspect of this compulsive cemetery behavior I didn't understand was the need to decorate the grave for every minor event. As I mentioned in Chapter 6, decorating graves on major holidays is perfectly fine. However, some people take it to an outlandish level. One lady went completely overboard when decorating her son's grave. She brought little rockets on New Year's Day, dozens of paper 4-leaf clovers on it. She brought little rockets on New Year's Day, dozens of paper 4-leaf clovers on St. Patrick's Day, and so forth. I sincerely doubt her son made a visit from heaven on every minor holiday to check out the newest decorations, but it allowed the woman to deal with her grief. I mean, my God. Again, why? Why feel the need to put this in writing. Like, what a nasty thought to have about somebody, right? And even if you were thinking it, like, that's okay, that's your own private thought. I would not put that on paper and sell it in a book, right? But like, if you were thinking like, hey, yeah, god dang man, we should bring some damn paper and flowers, that's your own private thought. That's your own damn business, right? You're entitled to that, right? You don't put that out there like that. Anyways, that lady was hardly alone. During the first week of November, my main task was removing dozens of carved pumpkins off graves before they turned into slimy piles of mush. It seems to me that any dead people who are still floating around would be more inclined to scare people on Halloween, or at least hang out at a Halloween party than go to their grave sites to look at decorations. Well, let's just take the wind out of everyone's damn sail. But I'll never forget the woman who drove her truck across several graves so she could throw out a hay bale to use as a Thanksgiving decoration on her mother's grave. The funny thing was that she saw me watching her, but she still did it before speeding off and leaving tire tracks across her own mother's grave. Yeah, I mean, he's a bitter damn queen. He did this job. Okay, like, he was one of these queens where when he gave his 2 weeks notice, he needed to give it like 2 years prior, right? I mean, he was like done, okay? He needed to check out a while ago. Wow. Okay, spring skiing is next. The most creative decoration I ever saw, though, didn't come from a flower shop. We had buried a teenager who had loved snow skiing, and his family always kept his grave well decorated with ski-related items. But on the night before Memorial Day, I drove to the cemetery to check on things and found his uncles arriving with 2 heaping truckloads filled with snow. They had gone deep into the mountains to find actual snow, and now they were shoveling it onto the lawn. Within an hour, they had constructed a mini ski slope next to their nephew's grave. I should hope that when I am gone that somebody cared enough about my ass to do something like that. I mean, that's touching. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. This is amazing, right? Okay. It was nearly 5 feet high and 8 feet long, and the family placed a little Ken and Barbie and ski gear at the top of the slope. It definitely caught the attention of every Memorial Day visitor that year. I didn't mind. It melted within 5 days and kept the grass green in that spot for a long time. I was waiting for him to say, and then we melted it with the exhaust on our cars as soon as he left. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like what I expect out of this monster. Okay, even Disney isn't safe is the next thing. As I mentioned earlier, people are known to steal decorations off graves. Now, this has been confirmed by several Sofa Squad members here that this is a thing. Thank you for... I have learned so much about graveyard stuff from reading this and y'all confirming stuff, people who like actually know, because I don't trust anything he says. So thank you. We are learning things. So... It's a shame, but I wasn't surprised when a lady complained to me that the expensive 2-foot-tall statues of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck she put on her daughter's grave were missing. I had spotted them on the grave the previous day, knowing it was likely the last time I would see them. They probably looked really nice in an old lady's backyard, though. I mean, at this point, this is probably true, unfortunately. Are we sure God is a Lakers fan is the next one. Some families have taken law enforcement into their own hands. One lady's son really loved the Los Angeles Lakers, and after his burial, she placed the Lakers memorabilia all over his grave during the NBA season. When items started disappearing, she naturally got irate. She then decided to enact the wrath of God on the thieves. She wrote a very threatening note, laminated it, then posted it next to the headstone. The note had a headline that said, "The Lord will curse your soul if you steal from this grave." Not surprisingly, the next stolen item from the grave was the note itself. Okay, the next section, teddy bears, Bud Light, and burned bills. He got real creative with that one. He probably workshopped that title right there. Okay. I know teddy bears are adorable, but they don't belong on graves. The sprinklers soak them in the summer, and they're constantly wet in the winter. They start to smell like a wet dog and fall apart. I think it is for such reasons that most cemeteries usually remove any decorations 1 week after they were placed on the grave. I personally think that's a little hasty, and I didn't have the time to patrol each grave that closely. But I was continually removing some memorabilia, it's okay, whatever, from certain graves. One lucky dead guy mysteriously received I just feel weird saying that, but that's what he wrote. One lucky dead guy mysteriously received an open bottle of Bud Light on the last night of every month. When I spotted the new delivery on that grave each month, I always dumped out the beer and threw away the bottle. I didn't want someone to take a swig of it. You know, he totally drank it. For several years on one grave we would find the charred remains of $20 bills. I would love to know the background of that story. Oh well, it makes as much sense as playing the lottery. I was amused when I found Baby Ruth candy bars on a certain grave every few days. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was amused when I found Baby Ruth candy bars on a certain grave every few days. None of them had actually been eaten. The candy bars just melted each day and reformed into strange shapes until each night, until I finally threw them away. A final meal is the next one. After one funeral, a middle-aged man stood near the graveside as we buried his father. When we finally got ready to put the dirt back in the hole, he jumped in front for the backhoe and shouted, "Wait!" He pulled from his coat a bottle of Planters peanuts and a six-pack of Coca-Cola. "Dad would have wanted these," he said. "Can I put them on the vault?" "Go ahead," I said. So he kneeled down along the grave, but he couldn't quite reach the vault. He then handed them to me and asked me to place them above where his father's stomach was. I did as requested, and he thanked me. But before he left, I asked, "Why are you giving him unsalted peanuts and caffeine-free Coke? Let him live a little." I said it jokingly. Go on, head it up. I said it jokingly, but the man responded very seriously. "Dad's on a strict diet." The man marched back to his car, and I shrugged at my coworkers who could barely contain their laughter. So beware, apparently some diets last beyond the grave. Again, just absolutely no respect for... It's like, I mean, I guess when you're working around death and in that realm, you're more used to it, but it just kind of shocks me. I would hope that people would have more couth. You know what I'm saying? Like... maybe he's not ready to accept that his dad's dead. Maybe he wants to continue the idea that his dad's on a strict diet. You know what I mean? Like, take the temperature of the room is what I'm getting at. Okay, bathroom break is the next one. The fact might surprise you, but cemetery restrooms are a favorite stop for tourists. When I go on vacation... Wait, hold on, stop. I have to restart, hold on. This fact might surprise you, but cemetery restrooms are a favorite stop for tourists. Okay, I get it. When I go on vacation, I never consider stopping in a local cemetery to relieve myself. I mean, are they that close to the... I would never think of this either. I didn't know they had public restrooms. Anyways, I would never consider stopping at my local cemetery to relieve myself, but nearly every week I had someone with an out-of-state license plate stop by specifically to use the restroom. What amused me was that we weren't even on the main road. Okay, here we go. On the way to the cemetery, you drive past several gas stations and fast food outlets. One winter it got so cold that a restroom pipe burst. I had to turn off the water and close the restrooms until the weather warmed up. You wouldn't believe how angry some people got when they discovered the toilet was out of order. I tried to keep the restroom clean, but I would personally rather go anywhere than a cemetery. Of course, as you learned in Chapter 4, the cemetery already had a septic tank in place. So yeah, I mean, if this is true, I agree. That's really, I would not think to stop there if I was on a road trip, especially being out of the way like that. I just wouldn't think of that, right? Anyways, funny families is the next one. Okay. I often help families select burial sites after a loved one had died. It was a somber time, but it was often hard to keep a straight face as I listened to their conversations. For example, one of the most common phrases I heard family members say was, "Dad will love the view of the mountains from the spot." How, I asked myself, he'll be locked in a box and covered with dirt. And need I remind you, he's dead. I mean, why would you... Let's stop for a second. Why would you put that in this book? Again, I will stay by this. Everyone is entitled to their own thoughts, right? Like, I have a dark sense of humor. We all have our moments. We're all human beings, right? We get this, right? We might have some thoughts. Why would you take the time to put that on paper, whatever, and put that out there? That's so crass. And maybe this is like, I don't know this guy, thank God. Maybe this is his attempt at humor. But I'm just like, well, this is like, people are grieving, right? This is like how they're, I mean, I get, of course it doesn't make sense. We know that he's dead. He's not going to see the mountains, right? I get it. You know, like, I get it, right? Like this, I mean, I get that. But why say that? It's just so inconsiderate. And again, that's what I just find so interesting reading this book, is we see this over and over and over. And so it really just shows me how I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, sprinkle in the admiration from all these other people surrounding him, and like, yes, Chad, yes, you've got the portal. Yeah, Chad, yeah, you're the 144 and all this stuff. This was a recipe for a major disaster, right? Okay, let's keep going. The next one is called Rival Relatives. There's a beautiful headstone in our cemetery that was on the corner of an intersection. It was a 3-tiered granite stone, part of me that I always liked. A few years later, a relative of that couple passed away and was buried in the lot next to them. When the new headstone arrived, I noticed it was about 3 inches taller than the older headstone that had been there for years. The two headstones are almost identical except for the height difference. Then a man from a headstone company showed up at my office seeking to locate those two stones. I walked over to the area with him, and he just shook his head as he studied them. He pointed at the older stone and said, "This couple's daughter came into our shop in a rage. Can you guess why?" I smiled and said, "Her parents' stone is shorter than the new one." "Exactly," he said. "My only instructions are to make the older stone taller than the new one." So by the end of the day, the older stone was no longer a 3-tiered stone and now had 4 tiers and a 3-inch height advantage. I expected a counterattack, but it never came. I'm sure stuff like that happens, right? I mean, I can only imagine that it's like this kind of stuff takes place, right? Please hold. Okay, the next one is War of the Roses. Okay. This next story begins with a man named Randy who regularly beat his wife. He was a troubled soul, and he eventually committed suicide. His long-suffering wife bought him a small, simple headstone and then vowed to never do another thing for him. I knew the story, and I knew the woman wanted Randy's grave to stay plain without any flowers or decorations. I cannot blame her. So I was surprised when one spring day I found rose bushes planted on each side of Randy's headstone. The roses were there for a few days, and then one morning they were gone. I figured someone had stolen them. 3 days later, another set of roses was planted there, and they disappeared again within a week. Things really got eerie when roses reappeared there a few days later. I had never seen anyone at the grave. I wasn't sure what to think. Then my office phone rang and cleared up the mystery. The caller was the man's widow, and she was angry. She shouted, "Are there roses planted next to my husband's grave?" I told her yes, and she let out a string of profanity. Then she apologized and said, "Randy's sister keeps sneaking out there at night and planting roses. Everyone knows how he treated me, and I don't want anything pleasant on his grave, so I've been ripping the roses out, and I'll keep doing it until I die." So for the rest of my time as sexton, I watched the roses appear and disappear at Randy's grave about twice a month. I stayed out of the dispute because the sister was as determined as the widow. I guess the winner will be the lady who lives the longest. What a sad game. At least that angry widow didn't go to the extreme of one lady who purposely buried her womanizing husband face down. Only the widow, the mortician, and I knew about her request. When I asked the mortician about it after the funeral, he shrugged and told me the wife wanted her husband to meet Satan face to face. All I could think was either that or he'll have his back to Christ on Resurrection Day. That guy can't win. Now that, I think, is actually Chad's sense of humor. I think the other stuff is just him being a jackass. So, yeah. The next section. You're not getting away. Okay, here's a scenario you had to see to believe. During a graveside service, one of the elderly funeral participants injured himself by falling over a headstone. Well, God knows, just have Chad go kick him in the damn ribs and see if he's alive. The injury was serious enough that an ambulance was called. The paramedics patched up the injured man and loaded him into the ambulance just as the funeral service was ending. It was quite a peculiar sight to see the ambulance pull away, followed immediately by the hearse. As they pulled out of the cemetery, it looked like the hearse driver was right on the ambulance's tail. Anyone passing by them on the highway couldn't help but think the mortuary must be extremely desperate for business. Okay, Matt the Rat. I'll share a little secret about Matt. This is not my Matt, this is what Chad is writing. One of my closest friends... Okay, hold on. I'll share a little secret about Matt, one of my closest friends. Matt worked at the cemetery while he was in high school, and one of his favorite Friday night activities was to take girls to the cemetery and put a scare into them. Of course, Matt had one advantage that few others did. He knew where the open graves were. Matt would nonchalantly walk along slightly ahead of his date, and then with a frightened shout, he would accidentally fall into the grave. You can imagine the shock and fear that would pass through the poor date. She would inevitably scream in terror and nearly faint. Then Matt would hop out of the grave and say, "Did it scare you?" He was lucky any of them ever spoke to him again, although one of them actually married him. Okay, just on that, so that's the end of the chapter. So Matt, right there, are you kidding me? Like, what? No, that's absolutely insane. Like, absolutely not. Like, I mean, who would even think to do that? That would scare the living hell out of me if somebody did that. Like, I would never even go, like, I want to do that on a first date? What? No, absolutely not. That's so weird. Again, with this chapter, we just get deeper and deeper into the fact that this guy, meaning Chad Daybell, y'all, this guy is a complete psychopath. He has absolutely no respect for human beings, for the deceased, for people, for himself, for really anybody at that matter, right? I mean, the comments that he made in here is just this nonchalant. It's like he gets more confident with it as the book goes on, right? Just this whole thing of like, it's almost like you're listening to a worker who's over their job and has done it so long and they're just over it, and so they're putting these thoughts out that might be thoughts they have amongst other people in the business and coworkers that you don't necessarily share outside of that, because you know people outside of that are going to be like, well, why would you say that? Like, you know, that doesn't make sense. Like, nobody else gets it, right? Like, nobody else is going to get this kind of thing of being like, oh God, did you see her? She came and decorated her like dead kid's grave. You know, it's so annoying. Like, nobody's going to understand that, right? We're going to all be like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? Like, that's a terrible thing to say. You see what I'm saying? I would venture to say probably his coworkers didn't even say that. But, oh no, he has it all written through here. Yo, we're at 81%. So basically what we can see is the pattern that we're on. We're in a holding pattern. Basically, I can do 10% per video. We're not that far. I mean, it's literally, we're close, y'all. The next chapter is chapter 9, Beware of Meddling Ghost. I shudder to think the blasphemy that follows in this. So again, I'll put a pinned comment. Let me know what you want to do, because we are getting to the end of this. And like I said, I think what I'll do is, in whatever I do next, if we do another one, I don't know. There might not really be another one to do of this, right? Because, I mean, one thing too is, I mean, it gets into it. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, I'll put a pinned comment if you want to hear me. If there's another specific book that you feel like I want to hear you read this one, Paul, or if you're like, you know what, Paul, I just want to hear you read. Like, I looked up some like old mysteries, right? Like, and I'm talking old ass mysteries, but I don't know. It seems like people like my humor that I add to it, and I mean, this writes itself, right? So I don't know if I took an old book that wasn't poorly written, you know what I'm saying, that was like just an old mystery, if it would have the same thing to it. Does that make sense? So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Speak freely. You're not going to insult me, you know. I just want to know, because I do enjoy doing this. And specifically, I do enjoy doing this to learn more about Chad. So I don't, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Y'all let me know. I'm coming to the squad for some answers. Y'all give them to me now. Anyways, thank you for being here. If you're still listening, I do appreciate it. I do love y'all. And we will see you very soon. Whoosh.